I used to think breaking down would look like screaming, but mine sounded more like, I'm good, just tired. The coffee had gone cold, again. Not because I forgot, but because I didn't care enough to drink it warm. That's the thing no one tells you. Numbness doesn't feel loud. It feels like apathy wrapped in polite silence. I was surviving on calendar reminders and unread texts, still showing up, still smiling, still functioning, but inside, I was off. Like an open app draining battery behind the scenes. I kept thinking, it's just a phase. But phases aren't supposed to last 3 years. 3 years of auto replies that sounded a lot like joy. 3 years of default settings: smile, nod, stay productive. The mask became muscle memory until I couldn't remember what my real face looked like. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't go away with sleep. It's not your body that's tired. It's yourself, the one underneath the good mood. The one no one ever asked to meet. Some mornings I'd stare at my phone for 40 minutes, not texting, not scrolling, just staring, waiting for the will to exist again. But I'd still log into work, still say, doing well, thanks. Still send the email with the happy exclamation mark, because the collapse hadn't happened yet. And if you're still upright, then you're still okay, right? The truth? I wasn't depressed. I was performing safety. I had mastered the art of vibe check past, while falling apart behind a locked bathroom door. CEO of pretending I'm fine at 2 a.m. It shouldn't be funny, but it kind of is. They say you can't pour from an empty cup, but no one tells you what happens when the cup looks full, and you're just really good at refilling it in secret. I had become a barista of burnout, serving fake peace with a smile, and then it started to show, but only in ways that could be excused. Forgot to eat again. Missed another message. Zoned out mid-conversation. Nothing dramatic, just micro cracks, hairline fractures in the soul. One night, I brushed my teeth without remembering if I had dinner. I stared in the mirror, toothbrush in hand, and saw someone I didn't recognize, not because they changed, but because I had stopped looking a long time ago. That mirror, it didn't lie. But it didn't tell the truth either. It just reflected whatever version I had practiced most, the professional. The friend, the one who's always okay, not the tired soul behind the act. It felt like I was living someone else's life, like I had been cast in a play I didn't audition for, and every day was opening night. Smile, hit your marks, don't fall apart. But when the curtain closes, where do you go? What if there's no one waiting in the wings? What if you've been playing you for so long, you forgot how to be? I'd replay the same 3 playlists on loop, songs I didn't even like, just familiar enough to not trigger anything. I called it background noise, but really, it was armor. Because silence was dangerous. It echoed back everything I didn't want to admit. And yet, there was a part of me, small, fragile, almost gone, that whispered, please let me stop pretending. But I didn't listen. Not yet, because stopping felt like failing, and failing felt like falling, and falling meant no one would catch me. I had curated my identity so carefully, crafted a self that was pleasing, reliable, harmless, but I had outgrown her, and I didn't know who else to be. I told my friend I'm doing great. I meant it mostly. But a part of me always hoped they'd ask again, just to see if I'd crack, just to know if they cared enough to look closer. They didn't, and maybe that's not their fault. Maybe I'm just really good at camouflage. Maybe my pain looks like productivity. Maybe my sadness learned how to sit still. But how long can you stay strong before your own silence breaks you? You didn't explode, you evaporated, quietly. No broken glass, no screaming match, just the sound of another unread message echoing inside your chest. You started sleeping in your hoodie, not because it was cold, but because it still smelled like the version of you who had energy, the one who left the house on purpose, who texted first, who meant it when they said, "I'm okay." Now, you say it with a smile, but inside, it lands like static. You wake up tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that lives in your bones. A soul-deep fatigue that makes brushing your teeth feel like emotional cardio, and no one notices, because your hair still looks fine, because you post funny things, because you say, "Just been super busy," and busy is the perfect excuse for disappearing. But this is what crashing out actually looks like, not a breakdown, a slow leak, a soul drip you can't patch. So let's call it what it is. The 7 silent signs. You're not tired. You're crashing out. 1, you're always exhausted, even after sleep. You go to bed early, hit snooze, wake up foggy, because rest means nothing when you don't feel safe in your own life. 2, you cancel plans but feel worse staying home. It's not people you're avoiding, it's the performance of being fine. 3, you're not sad, just blank, not crying, not smiling, just existing. And that's somehow scarier than either extreme. 4, you procrastinate on things you love, not out of laziness, because joy requires energy, and you ran out 3 months ago. 5, you can't remember what you used to enjoy. That version of you? She's on pause, and you're not sure if she's coming back. 6, even music doesn't hit the same. The songs still play, but your chest doesn't rise. Your foot doesn't tap. Your spirit stays flatlined. 7, you daydream about disappearing, not dying, just pausing. You imagine quiet, not silence. You want rest without guilt, peace, not escape. And still, you keep showing up. Because crashing out isn't about not trying. It's about trying for so long, without relief, that you start to dissolve. You keep busy on purpose, because silence means remembering, and remembering means feeling. And feeling, you're not sure you can handle that right now. You joke too much, overshare, but never deeply, like trauma in a meme format. You're the funny one, the strong one, the slay anyway friend. But your eyes are tired. Sometimes you stare at your phone just to pretend you're not alone. Scroll, click, swipe. The apps feel like lifeboats, but you're still drowning. Your voice changes around certain people. It goes up an octave, like your throat is trying to escape the truth. You say, "Ha ha," too much in texts. You send voice notes and delete them before they're opened. You never say what you really want. You just hope they'll guess. But no one guesses. Not because they don't care, but because you've built walls so beautiful they look like boundaries. You haven't cried in weeks, and that scares you more than crying ever did. Because what happens when the pain doesn't spill? It stagnates, becomes pressure. And pressure becomes a personality. You walk around holding your breath, not on purpose. You just forget how to exhale. And when someone asks how you are, you lie. Because the truth doesn't fit into small talk. And you're scared of what will come out if you start. So you stop starting. You answer less, talk less, feel less, and then it happens. The day you can't anymore. You stare at the inbox. You hover over the keyboard, and for the first time, you don't reply. Not out of spite, just emptiness. You feel nothing, and somehow that feels like everything. It's the moment you realize you've been surviving, not living. And survival has an expiration date. You used to hold it all together. Now, you're holding on by a thread, and no one sees it because you look fine. You always do. But this isn't a phase, it's a fracture. And if you keep walking on it, it will break. And maybe that's what scares you the most. Not the collapse, but the fact that you're starting to welcome it. You didn't cry, you just stopped. Stopped opening texts, stopped checking notifications, stopped pretending the playlist still comforted you. That night, you sat at the edge of your bed with toothpaste still on your tongue. The mirror across the room caught you mid-breath. You looked at it, but didn't move. And in that stillness, something shifted. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cinematic. It was one of those quiet moments that looks like nothing on the outside, but feels like an earthquake on the inside. You weren't looking at yourself. You were looking through yourself, like a guest in your own reflection. You weren't there. You hadn't been for a while. The version of you who used to hum while doing dishes, the one who sent good morning texts first, the one who lit a candle just because, gone. Not in a tragic way, just misplaced. You didn't lose her. You left her behind one spreadsheet, one compromise, one unread feeling at a time. And you only noticed it when the mirror went foggy. Not from steam, but from your breath hitting glass you forgot was even cold. That was the first time you heard it. The quote from a book you never finished. The line that came back like a whisper inside your ribs. When the true self is not allowed to speak, it doesn't disappear. It collapses silently. Donald Winnicott. You'd spent years building a life that looked good from the outside, but the truth? You were just staging a well-lit hostage situation. You kept asking, why am I so tired? But the real question was, who am I being for everyone else? You laughed in meetings, held space for friends, sent, "You got this," texts to people who never asked how you were doing. You were praised for being consistent, reliable, easygoing. But at what cost? You'd become the emotional barista of your circle, serving affirmation with a smile while your own cup stayed empty. And slowly, your real self got quieter, until she went mute, until even your laughter felt like a sound check. That's when the shelf cracked. You didn't hear it, but you felt it, like something inside you had run out of excuses, like a part of you whispered, enough. You had placed yourself so carefully on that emotional shelf, perfect posture, no dust, pleasant to look at, harmless. But the hairline fracture had been spreading for months, maybe years, and now it split, not in anger, but in truth. You weren't just exhausted, you were overextended, and not just in tasks, but in identity. You were performing you, every smile, every joke, every, "No worries, I got it," a costume you forgot you were wearing. And the scariest part? You wore it so well, even you believed it, until the stillness made the sound. That moment, toothbrush in hand staring into glass, was the first time your true self spoke. And she didn't scream. She just exhaled. "I'm here, and I'm tired of hiding." You didn't answer, not because you didn't care, but because the words caught in your throat like truth, trying to be born. They don't warn you about this part, the part where healing isn't loud, where it doesn't look like yoga or gratitude journals or glow-up posts. Sometimes, healing starts in a fogged mirror, with a person you barely recognize, finally whispering your name. And in that moment, you knew. You couldn't go back, not to the shelf. Not to the script, not to the version of you who called burnout just a busy season. No more reheated emotions, no more decorative boundaries, no more applause for disappearing politely. Because what good is holding it all together if the pieces inside you are begging to fall apart? You didn't announce it. There was no dramatic, "I'm taking a break" post. No big speech to your friends. Just silence. A different kind of silence this time. Not the numb, disconnected hush you used to hide in, but something softer. Like a pause that finally let you hear your own name again. It started with one breath. Not deep, not cleansing. Just real. You inhaled. And for the first time in months, you didn't feel like you were borrowing air. You stopped replying instantly. Let the text sit. You saw the read at 2:07 p.m. and didn't panic. You stayed in the shower 5 minutes longer, not to cry, not to escape, just to feel the water on your back and remember that you have a body. You didn't quit your job. You just logged off at 6:00 p.m. without guilt and left the Slack messages unread. You didn't ghost anyone. You just stopped reaching first. And if they noticed, they'd call. If they didn't, you finally understood what that meant. You lit a candle for no reason. Turned off your phone, let the silence ache, and then you whispered something you hadn't said in months. I'm not okay. And this time, it didn't feel like weakness. It felt like truth, like permission, like unlocking a door you didn't know you'd locked. This was your rebellion, not rage, not a breakdown, just honesty. And in that honesty, you found softness. You made tea and actually tasted it. You folded laundry while humming under your breath. You let your phone die and didn't rush to charge it. You deleted the playlist that reminded you of someone who forgot your birthday. Not out of spite, just because healing isn't nostalgic. You stopped checking their stories. You stopped posting for validation. You stopped performing grief like a TikTok trend. This wasn't your villain era. You weren't glowing up. You weren't unbothered. You were tired, and you were ready to tell the truth about that. The 5 tiny acts that quietly saved you. 1. You didn't say, I'm fine. You paused. That pause held more honesty than any explanation ever could. 2. You started eating before you were starving. Because feeding yourself wasn't self-care. It was self-recognition. 3. You let the messages pile up and didn't spiral. Because urgency without respect is not love. It's control. 4. You turned on a lamp at 4 p.m., not for aesthetics, just because the shadows were getting loud. 5. You said no and didn't explain. And that one word felt like a full sentence of freedom. This wasn't a plot twist. This was you, starting over without burning down the old story, just writing a new sentence, one breath at a time. And it wasn't perfect. There were days you slipped, answered too fast, apologized for existing. There were mornings you couldn't move, nights you still checked their profile. You still had moments where healing looked like holding on. But that's the thing about quiet rebellions. They're not about winning. They're about refusing to disappear. You weren't loud, but you were clear. You said, I deserve to feel peace, not just provide it. And something shifted. Not everything, but enough. You got up before noon. You remembered your password without resetting it. You listened to a song and didn't flinch. You looked in the mirror and saw someone trying. Not perfect, not fixed, just trying. And that trying? It felt like coming home. Because healing doesn't arrive with fanfare. It shows up in moments no one else claps for. Lighting a candle, drinking water, turning the page, answering yourself when no one else does. You didn't glow up. You glowed in, quietly, honestly, fully. There's a moment in healing no one warns you about. The one where you realize you've been surviving so long, you don't know who you are without the struggle. You wake up earlier now, eat more often, return a few calls, and still, you feel lost because healing didn't come with a map. It came with silence. And in that silence, a question grew louder than ever. If I keep living like this, what will be left of me? You've made progress, but the mask still fits too well sometimes. You know how to be what people need, even now, even healed-ish. You catch yourself mid-smile, wondering if it's real. You say, no worries, even when you're drowning in them. You offer to help when you need help yourself. You keep showing up, not because you feel strong, but because being useful still feels safer than being seen. You host the party, but avoid eye contact. You check in on everyone, but no one knows what your favorite song is anymore. You wonder, am I really better? Or just better at hiding it? And that's the danger, the quiet danger of half healing. It looks like balance. It feels like limbo. You're not who you were, but you're scared of who you might become if you stop performing. Because performance feels familiar, and familiar feels safe, even when it's slowly erasing you. So let's ask the hard question. What's actually at stake if you don't stop? 1. A life so quiet, even you forget how it began. You'll keep moving, posting, replying, until the days blur and the years vanish into perfectly filtered stories with no real plot. 2. Repeating the pain you swore you'd never pass on. You'll become the silence you begged your parents to break. You'll teach others to ignore their needs, because that's what you modeled. 3. A soul full of relationships, yet starved for connection. You'll be surrounded by people, but none of them will really know you, because you stopped letting anyone see beyond doing great. 4. A self too tired to dream. When the grind never pauses, the vision dies quietly, not with a bang, with busyness. 5. A heart that forgets how to hope. You'll start calling numbness peace. And that's not peace. That's surrender, dressed as stillness. And you're already halfway there, aren't you? You scroll past your own reflection, avoid your own voice in recordings, flinch when someone says you've changed, because you don't know if that's a compliment or a warning. You start craving things you never admitted, like softness, like someone making you coffee without being asked, like a hand on your back when you say you're fine, but they don't believe you. You start realizing you don't want applause anymore. You want presence, not followers, witnesses, someone who sees you when you're not performing. And that's the breaking point, isn't it? When being useful starts to feel like a cage, when being strong becomes the thing that's quietly killing you. When the phrase, "I'm proud of you," makes you want to cry, not because it's untrue, but because you've been saying it to everyone else but yourself. You want to be held, not helped. You want to be known, not noticed. You want to stop being someone's emotional first aid kit when you're still bleeding in places they've never seen. You want to rest, not because you've earned it, but because you exist. And somewhere deep in your chest, a voice you forgot says, you're allowed to be tired without proving why. You're allowed to stop, even if nothing's burning. You're allowed to be loved, even when you're not useful. And that's the line no one teaches us, because we've built our worth on exhaustion. We glamorize the hustle, sanctified sacrifice, turned overextension into virtue. But at what cost? You're not here to burn. You're here to belong. You're not here to be impressive. You're here to be whole. So if you keep this up, the pretending, the pleasing, the pushing, you won't just be tired, you'll vanish, piece by piece, performance by performance, until one day you look in the mirror and there's no one left behind the eyes. Try this. Don't fix anything. Don't clean your inbox. Don't open the self-help app. Don't rush to feel better. Just sit right here, right now, and place one hand over your chest. Can you feel that? That's not just a heartbeat. That's proof. You're still here. And that alone is enough. You don't need to do more to deserve rest. You don't need to be better to be loved. You don't need to explain why you feel this tired. Let that land. Let it sting a little. Because the world told you that being enough was something you earned, not something you already were. But you're learning, slowly, tenderly. In the quietest moments, no one claps for, you reheated your tea, just for you. You turned off your phone, not in anger, but in protection. You laid on your bed not because you gave up, but because you wanted to feel the weight of your own body again. Proof that you still belong to this earth. You didn't answer the message. You didn't post the quote. You didn't pretend to be okay. And that silence was not emptiness. It was sacred. It was you returning. Returning to the breath. Returning to the girl you left behind when life got too loud for softness. Returning to the boy who just wanted to be held without being fixed. Returning to the version of you that didn't perform to feel worthy. And somewhere inside that stillness, a whisper. You made it back. Welcome home. The cracked teacup is still on your shelf. You kept it. Not because you needed the reminder, but because you deserve to see something broken still hold warmth. And now you pour into yourself without apology, not all at once, just one small cup at a time. And it holds. You hold. Because that's the truth they never tell you. Healing doesn't always mean becoming someone new. Sometimes it means remembering who you were before the world told you to be everything else. You don't crave applause anymore. You crave softness. A room that doesn't expect you to sparkle. A friend who doesn't flinch when you say, "I'm not okay." You want to sit across from someone who sees the crack and doesn't look away. And maybe you're learning to be that person for yourself. Let this be your first real breath. Not one laced with shame or performance. Not a reset. Just an inhale that doesn't carry weight. An exhale that doesn't apologize. Just breath and presence and you. Still here. You didn't fall behind. You paused. And that pause saved you. You didn't stop being lovable. You just stopped chasing people who only loved the version of you that never needed anything back. You didn't miss your moment. You're just learning now that your moment has always been this one. Not the glow up, not the comeback, but the breath, the candle, the quiet. And maybe you're still healing. Maybe there are days when your shadow still sits beside you, asking questions you're not ready to answer. That's okay, because the candle stayed lit, even in the dark, even when you forgot how to tend it, even when the room filled with silence and the playlist stopped playing. The light never left. It just waited. And then the wind spoke, not with words, but with presence. And it said, "You think you're lost, but you're just walking slower now, because your soul finally asked to be heard, and softness takes time. You think you've broken. But all I see is someone who finally put down what was never theirs to carry. You think you're behind, but stars move in circles, not lines. And so do you. You are not a project. You are not a brand. You are not your performance. You are breath. You are belonging. You are here. So rest, love. Let the inbox wait. Let the world spin without you for one evening. Let the healing take its time. You are not late. You are not lazy. You are not alone. You are a cracked teacup on a quiet shelf that still holds warmth. And this is your first real breath.